Not to text spit. Okay, here we go. Hey everyone, I'm Jennifer Purcell with Spark Plus Fiction, and tonight we get a chance to talk to Laura DeBow about her story, A Whole Latte Love. I can't even talk today, y'all. I'm
It's tricky.
sorry. I'm still recovering from the holidays. I don't know about y'all. I'm still on
Yeah,
vacation.
definitely having the holiday hangover.
Yes. So let me go ahead and introduce Laura to y'all. A Texas girl living in a Georgia world, Laura has loved words and stories since she could first string sentences together. She may still have a few stories written in elementary school tucked away, stories about magical sand castles and a talking, clothes quick changing frog. These days, she focuses her writing efforts on inspirational fiction with an emphasis on romantic suspense and contemporary romance. When not figuring out plots or tinkering with words, Laura can be found spending time with her husband, cheering on their kids in sports, reading, cooking, or doing something active. All right. So let's start, Laura, by asking you what was the inspiration behind your story, A Whole Latte Love?
Yes, the horse costume contest. So my sister-in-law is very involved with a horse barn in Decatur, Georgia, just kind of down in this little like urban setting. They have this horse farm and park, and they do an open house for Halloween, and they actually have a horse like costume contest. And so she invited us down. Year before last we went, and I just, it was funny. I thought it was so cute, all these horses and costumes, and there are people leading them around, and there was like a Scooby-Doo gang, and there was like Pink Panther and Inspector Clouseau, and just fun little things like that, and there was a bride and groom, and I just always thought that was so funny. And so when Spark announced the Love Unleashed theme, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, horse costume.
Love it. And it's so
Yeah.
unique too, which brings me to another point. So this story, not that I want to give any spoilers away, but there may or may not be a proposal. And I have not read a lot of those flash fiction stories because you want them to care about the fact that he's proposing. So what made you, I mean, you did this really good. I don't want you to think that you didn't. You did an amazing job, but what made you decide, hey, I want to do the proposal instead of like a meet cute or maybe the first time they say I love you or anything like that?
Yeah, I just we as readers of romance, we all love the happily ever after or the happy for now or whatever. And I just thought, we do read so many things with meet cutes, or maybe it's friends to more and they start realizing their feelings for each other, or enemies to friends, or whatever it is. We kind of go through the journey with them, and but at the end, that's what gives us like the sigh, right? Like the like, oh, the proposal, or oh, they've committed to be together, or whatever it is. And um I just thought, I don't know, I just wanted to kind of capture that moment in time.
So how did you manage? Because I know in your story, one of the things I loved about it, you managed just to give us some backstory in like two sentences of how they met and their relationship. So was that difficult for you to kind of pare that down into 2 minutes to make sure that we understood how much they loved each other?
Well, it is tricky to pare it down because, 1,000 words. There's that. Um, yeah, but I've read a couple of stories where they talked about equine therapy, especially for veterans. I've always had a heart for people in the military, like from when I was little, and I'm not even sure where that comes from. I mean, my dad served, and my husband served, but before I knew him and whatever. But even from when I was little, I've just always had a heart for people in the military and like their families and the sacrifices they make. And so, just I think that the therapy that animals can provide for people that come back, with scars that we can't see, some that we can, but some that we can't see. I just have always, I don't know, that's just always moved me. And so I just wanted to make Rowan like this war hero, but he's wounded, and because the horse farm thing, obviously, the therapy. Um, And I I don't know how appropriate it is that he and his therapist like, kind of dated or whatever. But anyway, I loved that connection for them. And yeah, just trying to make it meaningful and not pat. It's I don't know. I mean, you write flash fiction, I mean, you write like 100 drafts probably by the time you get like the final product. Or I do anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely not like a one and done thing. Like, oh, this is perfect. Let me go put this up. No. But since this was Love Unleashed was a pet issue, so I have to ask you, do you have any pets?
I do. We have a dog. His name is Maverick. Um, but we call him Spanky also because he's kind of really more of a Spanky than a Maverick. And he answers to both. Like he totally knows he's both. Um, but he was a rescue. We got him when he was about 6 months old, and he's about to be three. And we think he's like an Aussie pit mix of some sort. He's really beautiful. He's got like red hair. He kind of matches me, but he's got like the golden eyes and like the pink nose instead of like a dark nose. And he's so cute. He's so cute. And I usually have him in like a little bow tie.
Oh,
But he's so sweet and so cute, but he's also like a complete and total spaz. Like we don't know what happened in his first 6 months, so he's got like some anxiety.
aw.
And so like, you get out of like a bag to change the trash and you like shake it out to put it in, and he like like freaks out like, oh. And anybody, we have a really long driveway that's almost like a runway that leads to our house, and like anybody's coming up and he's like just screaming his lungs off at the window, like freaking out, like who's coming, who's coming. I don't know, he's so crazy, but we love him. He's a hot mess.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah,
All right, so
that's Maverick.
well, with a name like Maverick, I have to ask, are you a Top Gun fan?
Of course. Oh my gosh. Yes.
I mean, I've never seen the movie, but I know it's in the title of the sequel, so I just had to ask.
You
Um,
have to see it, Jennifer. It's so good. I'm not a fan of sequels by and large, but this is an excellent sequel. You must see it.
okay, I will take that recommendation seriously. So, this story that you wrote is a contemporary romance, but I know sometimes we'll write a certain subgenre, but another one is our favorite. So, what is your favorite subgenre of romance?
I really love contemporary, and I do like romantic suspense a lot as well. And then it's kind of a small distinction, whatever, but like just rom-com, like the really funny contemporary romance. I've really gotten into that recently. I love to laugh when I'm reading. I love so those are kind of my three faves. I do read historical a lot also. I just love to read. I just love stories, and so it's hard to pick a favorite.
Speaking of rom-com, y'all may not know this, but Laura also has a story in our rom-com issue from the spring, The Trouble with Love, and it was called, I think it was Catching the Photographer's Eye, or it was something about, it was
Was
really
it?
good, and y'all should go and read it.
Thank you.
Um, but what is your favorite, now that we've talked about your favorite subgenre of romance, tell me your favorite romance trope. I know,
So
it's such a
many
hard
good
question.
ones. It is a hard question. I have to say, my son asks me all the time, like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite book? What's your favorite song? I'm like, I don't have favorites. I have like two, like I love so many things. I can't pick a favorite. But I really love Friends to More or Second Chance romance. I think it's probably like my favorite.
Oh, those are some good ones. So I'm gonna put
Yeah.
you on the spot because I can. But tell me some good books you've read that were like Second Chance or Friends to Lovers.
Okay, let me think. So I just finished over the holidays. I read Courtney Walsh's I think it's Merry Xmas, like EX Mess,
Oh,
and that was a second chance. Oh my gosh. So I'm reading right now. I love so much. I love Emma St. Clair. I love her rom-coms. I love her so much. And so the whole Sheet Cake series, have you been reading that at all? Oh
Yes,
my
so
gosh. So the buy-in, right? That was Second Chance. So good with Pat and Lindy. And right now I'm reading I'm drawing a blank. The Bluff, with the brother James and the friend Winnie, and it's actually kind of like enemies to more, but I which is also fun usually. Let me see, friends to more. Oh gosh. Well, actually, uh, the last one in the cliche series that Emma wrote that's the kind of the jumping off for um, this series is the Harper and Chase's story, and they were friends to more. I
I really need to
can't
read that
remember.
book because
Yeah,
after reading the buy-in and you get to see them again, I'm like, man, I need to go read that book.
yes. So like the Love Cliche series, that was, oh my gosh, I loved that so much, and that had, and it was funny because it had like kind of all the tropes. It was like, my best friend's brother and my falling for my boss and my fake fiance, like all the tropes. It was so fun.
I love that. And y'all, just in case you're wondering, we have a Facebook readers group now called A Sweet Spark of Romance, and the buy-in is our book this month that we are reading. And so if you haven't read that yet, I highly recommend it. It's hilarious. It's a nice, clean book. And when I say clean, I mean it's like one of those sweet closed door romances.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Um, those are some very good suggestions, Laura. I always like asking people about books so that I can like laugh maniacally when I know that people are like adding a million books to their TBR that's like already overflowing.
I have one more book that I have to say, and it's so funny that I'm reading The Bluff right now because it's the grumpy, enemy to more or enemies to lovers, and this one is too. But I just discovered Anna Conwell and her book, The Love Audit. I think it's her debut, and it was just this past year. Um, and it was so good and so funny. Another sweet, clean. She doesn't say it's like inspirational or anything, but there was definitely like a faith thread through it. But it was so excellent. And I've got on my Kindle waiting for me One More Song, which is the next one in the series that I can't wait to get to. But I had all these other ones like stacked up. So I'm excited to see what Anna does because, like I said, I'm pretty sure Love Audit was her first book, and she's kind of like starting to crank them out. So be
Ooh,
good.
that's
Keep
exciting.
an eye on her. Put her on your
Yeah.
list.
All right. So now we've talked about reading. Um, and before my list is already too long, and now you just added two books to it. So let's talk about writing. How long have you been writing?
Well, I have been writing since like elementary school. Like I do literally have stories in my, awkward cursive handwriting, like that I wrote when I was little. And I've always loved writing. In high school, I took a creative writing class, and then from that, I got invited to join the literary magazine staff. Actually, I was really, and my teacher was very, she's one of those teachers you're like, is she mean? Is she hard? Does she like me? Like, one of those. And then, she invited me. And one of my stories, she said she was like in her office crying when she was reading it. And everybody's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm reading one of my student stories. And she told me at that time, she's like, you need to find yourself a literary agent. I was like, okay, but you're like 16, you're like, okay, whatever, you know. And I'm like, dang, like she really encouraged me. And I wish I had really taken that to heart and not just kind of been like, okay, lady, sure. Um, if I had pursued creative writing more passionately at that time. I did write in college. My degree is journalism, public relations. I went to University of Texas and I wrote for the Daily Texan, the newspaper at UT. Yeah. But I did like a lot of corporate writing for years, working in advertising and PR and marketing and all that kind of stuff. But fiction has always been what I love the most and what I've always wanted to do. um but life and wanting to have an income and things like that. And so I just always kept saying, I really want to try to write. And so I, one year, I decided to take a stab at NaNoWriMo, 2015. And I did it. I wrote a draft. Yeah, yeah. In that 1 month, and and it's horrible. It's like, never probably going to see the light of day, but it's like I did it.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, this is feasible. But then again, I just kind of got busy. And then we moved to the Northwest Atlanta area in the end of the summer of 2018. And it was really sad. I mean, Texas is my home, all, our friends, family, all that stuff. But I decided, okay, so I always had like little part-time gigs while I was like work, because I stayed home with my kids. And I always had things that I was doing, and I just never like had the time to write. That's why I was like, okay, I have to do. So I decided to do NaNoWriMo again in 2018, and I did it. And I actually was pretty happy with that draft. So I started messing with it more, and then I started looking at conferences, and then I started that following year. I started going to the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference. So I've gone the past 4 years to that. And that draft that I wrote in 2018, I submitted it in 2020 for the Foundation Awards, and I placed second. It's a romantic suspense. Yeah, yeah. So it was like, it's almost like God has to like pick me up and like move me out of like my crazy busyness to like carve out the time to write and focus and
Mhm.
do those things. And now I'm close enough. I mean, it's like, I don't know, like 4 hours to drive to Blue Ridge for the conference. So I've been able to do that the past 4 years versus, I don't think I would have been flying from Texas all the. So,
Yeah.
sometimes we have to shake things up to get to what's next, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes. And
I
so from
said,
there, I've met like a, great writing community, and, we have accountability. We have write-ins like almost every morning. I'm like on the computer writing with other friends, just trying to keep doing it.
to me, the writing community was the game changer because
Yeah.
before I got involved in writing groups, it was just me by myself in a corner on my laptop. And it's so easy to get distracted when you don't have other people holding you accountable. And I didn't know anything. I had no idea what was going on in the publishing world. I
Yes.
didn't know how to do all that. Um, so for anyone watching that wants to write, I highly recommend that you find a writers group somewhere. Just like
Yes.
go to Google, find a writers conference, and go, and it will change your life.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit, Laura, now about your writing process. Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Are you in between? Does it depend on what day and your mood?
Um, I've mostly been a pantser, and that's why that first novel that I drafted was such an absolute disaster. I felt like I had a little more of a skeleton in my mind when I wrote the second um, manuscript. And then I actually I'm still like processing through, I'm still kind of editing that like on the side, but I have another story that I'm really thinking about a lot lately. And I'm trying to kind of do the snowflake method for
Oh,
plotting. I saw your interview with one of the other writers, um, probably in November, and talking about, finding the plotting thing that works for you. I think Hope gave you that advice or something
yes.
or like that, I think. And I was like thinking that's really what I'm kind of been doing. I've kind of been trying because I've read a few books, I think I've read like the story equation, and I've read like goal, motivation, conflict. And I'm like looking at all the things, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out what works for me, because I know I think I have to have some sort of something to keep me on the rails a little bit. But I kind of would like to fancy myself up, maybe like a plantser or whatever, kind of
Yeah.
the hybrid, whatever they
Yes.
call it. So I'm working toward that because I really would like to have a slightly more cohesive first draft, because for me, I feel like the editing it is where I get super bogged down. Like I just like go in and I think, oh gosh, no, this isn't working. I want to change everything. But I guess that's just part of it. But I don't know. I'm still figuring it all out. Like you said, I mean, I'm still learning. Every conference I go to, I'm like picking up so many things that are helping, I hope.
One of the hardest things I have, speaking of editing, is knowing when to stop editing. Because have you ever like sat a book aside and you feel really good about it, and you come back to it like 2 months later and you're like, this is complete trash, and I'm going to change like all of this stuff, like, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you drive yourself crazy because you're like, at some point, I'm going to have to stop. And I remember I had an author tell me one time, she said, there is no such thing as a perfect book. So you just have to like stop at some point. And I was like, but when? And I still don't know the answer to that.
Well, I think that's a lot of time where the community comes in because, if you have people that you can, share your writing with, which is that's still very scary to me.
Yeah.
But it's like if you have people that you trust to give you a good, honest critique and give you some good feedback, I think that helps. And then I think at some point, we have to engage professional editors. You have to invest in what we're doing. I'm not to that point yet, but I know it's coming. If I want to, try to move to publication, that's coming. So, yeah. But yeah, you're right. I mean, because we could just edit things to death. Like I joked earlier, like I probably wrote a whole latte love, probably 100 iterations of it, like what point? And I think I read it once you guys published, and I was like, I think I would have said this instead of that. I'm like, oh my gosh, stop the madness.
It's so funny because I did the same thing with mine. Like I went to look at it and I was like, oh my gosh, that just is not my best work. And I really should have done this and I really should have done that. But now it's out there and I can't take it back.
Oh my gosh, that little pig was so cute. I love that story.
Thank you. I do not have any experience with pigs, but thankfully there's the internet and my mom. Funny story. My mom grew up on a farm and they raised hogs, to eat. And there was a pig named Jenny. And I found that out and I said, Mom, please tell me you did not name me after a pig. And she was like, okay, first of all, I named you Jennifer and not Jenny. And second of all, your dad picked your name, so no. And I was like, I just needed to know. Just
want to be sure.
You really never know. So to someone who maybe they just decided that they wanted to start writing and they're inundated with all this advice and it can be incredibly overwhelming. So what would you suggest, like the one thing that they should do today if they know that they want to write a book? I know it's a loaded question.
It is. Oh gosh. I mean, part of me wants to say just sit down and start. I mean, because a lot of times for me, and I think that was why that like putting that stake in the ground with NaNoWriMo, because I was like, I'm gonna write a novel. I'm gonna write, and it's like, well, are you really? Like, and like something that made me like commit to it and like put it out there. You declare it on their webpage and you set up your profile and all that stuff. So, I mean, honestly, reading craft books obviously is important, but I think people that feel like they want a novel, probably they already have a story in their heart, if you're feeling that pull to do it. And so I think just sitting down and putting words on the page is the most important first step. And then, finding the community and learning. I mean, hopefully I'm never going to stop learning, about writing. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of craft books over here on my little bookshelf and all those occupation thesaurus, emotional wound thesaurus, right?
So good.
All those things. I mean, we're constantly doing things to improve, but I think the most important thing is to maybe just start. I mean, even if it's just journaling ideas or just just writing as a discipline, I think is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. I don't know.
That was really good advice, Laura. That inspired me. It made me think of the Nike commercials, just do it.
Just do it. Put your rear in your chair and put your hands on the keyboard and go.
So to end things off, I wanted to ask you kind of a fun question. I didn't want to prepare you in advance for it because I actually kind of already know the answer because you told me this when we were at Blue Ridge back in May and we were having a conversation. Because as a Georgia girl, I was curious, what was it like moving from Texas to Georgia? So I have to ask, what was it like moving from Texas to Georgia?
Well, so we lived in a very flourishing suburb in North Dallas. Um, and we actually moved from Dallas, Texas to Dallas, Georgia. And Dallas, Georgia is little bitty, very small, and very rural by comparison. So that was a bit of a culture shock. Like I literally drive by cow pastures taking my kids to school. Yes, for real. So that was very different. And then the other thing I just can't get over is like the road system. Like we have all these 2-lane windy roads going everywhere, like to go to the grocery store and to get, and where we lived before, like it was literally like 6 lanes, stoplights, like basically like a giant grid. The city was like this giant grid. And so it's like you could just get anywhere so fast. And here it takes forever to get anywhere. But it's been nice because our the pace of our life has changed. Um, it's really beautiful here. I mean, I love Texas. I thought I would like live all my days there, but um, it's pretty nice here, and we are growing to love it.
I am curious if you've been to Atlanta proper yet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we go down there sometimes. We did the varsity, did the aquarium, been to the zoo. So my husband's whole family lives in the greater Atlanta area.
Oh,
And so we
wow.
used to come here all the time, like for holidays anyway. So it's like if we had to move anywhere, this was definitely the place to be with,
So,
because we had family also.
so how does the traffic in Dallas, Texas compare to the traffic in Atlanta, Georgia?
It's pretty comparable, but Atlanta is worse.
Okay, that's what I've
Especially
heard.
the reason is, yeah. So the Dallas highway system is it's very user friendly. It's like everything makes sense to me. It's like stuff goes east and west and north and south, and everything kind of connects. And here it's like because of where we live, like we got to go down 75 and then over 285 and then over to 280 or 85 to go north. Like we have to go down and over and up and to get. It's like why can't there be something up here connecting to over here? If I got to be over here, it's like so. Yeah, so that is crazy making, but yeah, and then I don't know what is ever happening on the highways to make people just come to a total standstill, but it happens a lot here. It happens a lot here.
Oh, was it?
I just set off my Siri. I don't know what I did. I hit my phone, my watch, and it's trying to understand what I was just talking about.
That was funny because in my head I was thinking about this is one of the reasons why I love those fish out of water rom-coms where you have like the city slicker coming to the country and they don't understand what's happening and they get behind a tractor for the first time, on the highway and they're stuck. I love those stories and I think it's because me growing up in a rural area and I hate the city. Like I hate it. I will not go to Atlanta. You can't make me. I won't drive there. If I go, I'm a passenger and I close my eyes until I get to the destination because the people around me make me nervous. So I think that's one of the reasons I love those rom-coms where you have like the fish out of water. You know what, Laura? I think you could write one. I think you have enough.
Not the experience.
Yes. You've
I'll
seen
put it
both
on the list.
sides. You understand both sides, and so you could totally write that.
Yeah,
Definitely
I'm gonna
could.
put it on the list, Jennifer.
I don't know about you, Laura, but do you ever get too many ideas for stories?
Yes.
So it's not just me. Okay.
No. Oh my gosh, the notes app in my phone, like I have an entire folder that's just writing. And every time I have an idea, I'm like, story idea, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like in there. And it's like, yes, so many. I'll never write even half of them, I'm sure.
And it's kind of sad in a way when you look at it and you're like, I'm never going to be able to write all these stories. It makes
Mhm.
me sad. It's kind of like when I look at my TBR and I'm like, I'm never going to read all these books before I die because every year more come out. And so I'm like
Mhm.
shuffling and like, I'm like, I can read this one later. I have a book on my Kindle that I bought 2 years ago that I have not read yet. And I'm like, this is a problem.
Yeah. That's I guess just the burden we carry as avid readers and writers.
It's all a burden. All
It's our
right.
cross to bear to read all these books.
So I'm like, who needs to do dishes when there are like fictional lives at stake, right? Like, no.
Thank goodness for audiobooks. That helps.
Well, thank you, Laura. This has been so much fun. So thank you for joining us. And everyone, go check out her story. I'm going to put some links to her website so that you can go and you can sign up for her newsletter. And I will also put a link to her other story from her rom-com issue because you're going to want to read it and you're going to want to keep an eye on Laura because you never know what's going to come out one day in Barnes and Noble. And you're going to be like, I remember that girl. And then you're going to buy her book. So
Thank
everyone,
you,
y'all
Jennifer.
thank you, Laura. I love talking to people, and I especially love it when I got to meet them in person, and so I can just spring things on them because I already know the answer. I might be a little bit mean, but we.
It's not mean.
Well, thank you. So everyone, y'all have a wonderful weekend, and stay tuned for more of these interviews.